This episode of The Young Turks is brought to you by Thrillist.
Let's talk about how the Republicans are in a uniquely bad situation. So they've got the American people saying, don't be this extreme, we don't like your priorities. On the other side, you have the Tea Party. For example, Judson Phillips, he's the leader of Tea Party Nation. And he's already saying, that's it, I'm done with John Boehner. He said the $61 billion in cuts that he proposed is not nearly enough, and I don't want him to negotiate away $1 of that. In fact, he called Boehner a fool. Then he went on to say this colorful quote, Charlie Sheen is now making more sense than John Boehner. So he doesn't like John Boehner, thinks he's way too soft. And then Politico reports that Phillips also called for, quote, a candidate to run against John Boehner in 2012 and should to defeat in a primary the sitting Speaker of the House of Representatives. So this is their leader in the House, the Republican leader in the House, and the Tea Party says not nearly extreme enough. We should primary him, not for the seat of Speaker of the House, not challenging him for that, but actually take him down and remove him from Congress. So he's stuck. What's he going to do? On the one side, he's got the Tea Party, and they're like, cut. And on the other side is the American people saying, no, we don't like those priorities. So they go into the negotiating room, and of course, they just sit there. And so the president has an awesome opportunity. All he has to do is let them destroy themselves, right? Now, if you care about the policies, you have to care a little bit about the politics, because the right politics can lead to right policy. So if you're an advisor to the president, you would say, let them, destroy themselves. The people are on your side, demand on your priorities, and you'll be all set. You almost can't lose, right? So they're given this great gift, and how do you think the White House responds? Now, if you've been watching this show for a while, you know exactly what's coming. First of all, let me break it down for you, and this is amazing. Before the negotiations began, what did the White House do? They immediately gave enormous concessions. So what the Republicans said is that they wanted to cut basically $100 billion. From that baseline, President Obama came out and said, I'm going to freeze spending for 5 years. I'm going to freeze federal employee pay. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And he said, look, here are $40 billion in concessions. So he's almost met them halfway already, and the negotiations have not begun. Now, what did the Republicans do in response? They said, fantastic. The new baseline is after your first set of cuts. So now you've got to meet us. Well, first of all, they don't even care about halfway, but they're saying you're starting at ground zero now. What? And Obama's surprised by this. Why are you surprised? We told you a million times. Stop giving away stuff before the negotiations. So they go to sit down in the negotiations. Now, anybody want to guess who gave the first compromise offer? Of course, it was Obama's team. They said, all right. We'll give you $6 billion more. But you know what? That's $6 billion on top of the $4 billion that they already promised in the 2-week extension. Remember, they had this deadlock a couple of days ago, and the Republicans said, all right, we'll give you 2 more weeks to extend the government so the government's not shut down, but you have to give us all of the $4 billion we want in those 2 weeks in terms of cuts. And there was no negotiation. Of course, the Obama administration gave them all $4 billion. Now they're giving them another $6 billion, so they're already at $50 billion worth of cuts, exactly at halfway between what the Republicans said they wanted and initially what the Democratic proposal was. So what do the Republicans say? Not good enough. Of course! What is the Republican counterproposal? Nothing. No counterproposal, no compromise, no negotiation. And they're 100% right. You know why? Tactically speaking, politically speaking. All you have to do is sit there and let Obama keep playing against himself. They're like, man, we thought we were nearly a checkmate, but this guy keeps giving us the store. He's giving me his bishop, his knight, and now he's offering me his queen. He's like, all right, I'm going to let him do it. So McConnell and Boehner are right. Just let Obama keep punching himself in the face. All right, you're still not convinced? I'll give you the quotes. Here's Gene Sperling. He is the top economic advisor for the White House, okay? When they asked him, hey, listen, how are you doing so far? And he says, he brags, he says, it is clear that we can meet them halfway. So he's like, I'm coming towards them. They don't have to move, right? Then they said, all right, well, you've already given $50 billion in cuts. Is that good enough? What's your stance now? He said, quote, we have made it clear that we are committed to doing that, and we are willing to cut further if we can find common ground on the budget with reducing spending in the right way while protecting our investments in education, innovation, and research. Did you hear the critical part there? He said, we gave all these cuts and, quote, let me give it to you again, we are willing to cut further. The world's worst poker players. But the thing is, by now you've caught on. Nobody can be this bad. The only way that you can be this bad at this is if you want to lose. Okay? When they asked Sperling, hey, what are the other cuts that you might agree to? What else is on the chopping block? He said, quote, stay tuned. No, come on, you can't be this dense. Okay, a negotiation. Let's say it's management and labor, right? And I'm management, and labor is, sitting on the other side. And I say, or labor, it doesn't matter. Take any negotiation, any side. If I'm on one side of a negotiation, I keep saying, hey, I'm going to give in more. But you know what? Just stay there. Don't move. I promise that I will give more and more concessions as things go along. What would the other side do? If they were management, they were labor, they were Republicans, they were there. It doesn't matter. You sit there and you go, okay, fine, give me more. Okay, come on, I'm asking you. They can't be this bad at negotiation. Nobody can be this dense. See, I'm afraid what we have is Harlem Globetrotters versus Washington Generals. And the Democrats are paid to be the guys who take the hit, the Washington Generals, to go out there and lose, and so that the troops are entertained, okay? And the fans come for a good show. It's all fake drama. The end result is what you don't want, right? The polls are clear. You say cut defense, raise taxes on the rich. Do not cut these vital programs. The final conclusion is going to be the exact opposite. They're not going to cut defense. They're going to cut taxes on the rich, which they already did. And they're going to cut all those critical programs you said you don't want cut. Now, why? Because we've lost control of the system. It's not really a democracy anymore. You see, they don't represent you. I keep telling you this, and I hate to tell you, but you can see it here. You can see it with your own eyes. They represent the people who got them elected, and the people who got them elected are the people who fund their campaigns. For example, who funds their campaigns? The defense contractors. Huge amount of money to politicians. So, gee, I wonder why they're not going to cut defense, even though the whole country tells them to. It's because they get paid by the defense contractors. Gee, I wonder why they're not going to take away $46 billion in oil subsidies. Yesterday, I looked into those programs more. You might think like, oh, maybe it's subsidies to do the right things like green energy, et cetera. No, it's subsidies to encourage them to drill for oil. They're the most profitable companies in the world because they drill for oil. You don't have to give them an extra incentive. The oil's at $100 a barrel. There's no need for any incentives. They're just taking $46 billion out of our pocket and giving it to the oil companies. Why? It actually makes sense. Because the oil companies run their ads, pay their bills, and get them elected. You see how the system is set up all wrong? So when you're not waiting for the Democrats to ride to the rescue, well, it's not going to happen. They get paid by the same guys. They just get paid for a different role. Their role is to lose and be like, oh my God, I didn't know. You mean to tell me I shouldn't have given away everything before the negotiations? They know. That's the bad thing. So what will happen at the end of these negotiations, even though if you cared about winning, the Democrats could easily destroy the Republicans by simply demanding what the American people demand, and putting them in that untenable spot where they're stuck between the Tea Party and the American people. Instead, they will play the only way they can to lose the game, which is to say, okay, Republicans, we will agree with your bad priorities that the American people hate, and you could then later blame us for those, which is a tactic that the Republicans use all the time. You voted for the Iraq war, we pressured you into it, too bad. I'm going to say, look at that, John Kerry voted for it, Hillary Clinton voted for it, it's their fault. We've shown you this tactic a million times. Now, how stupid can you possibly be to fall for that tactic again? They're not stupid. They're paid to be the Washington Generals. They're paid to lose. And now we have a new sponsor, Thrillist. They're very cool because they hook you up with really interesting things going on in your town or any town you might be in that you don't know about.
Right. They also let you know where the best restaurants, bars, venues are.
Thrillist.com/TYT.